They didn't recruit criminals. They didn't target the broken, the desperate, or the weak. They recruited doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, loving parents, straight A students, people with futures, people with families, people exactly like you. And then, slowly, methodically, and with terrifying precision, they took everything. Their identity, their money, their relationships, their ability to think for themselves. Some of them gave up decades. Some gave up their children. Some gave up their lives. And the most disturbing part? Most of them never even realized it was happening. Today on the Dark Ledger, we are going inside 5 of the most dangerous cults in American history. We are not talking about fringe groups that nobody joined. We are talking about organizations that operated in plain sight, in American cities, on American television, in American courtrooms, and destroyed thousands of lives while the rest of the country watched. These are not ancient history. Some of these groups are still operating today. Stay until number 1, because that one did not just destroy its members. It tried to destroy an entire country. Cult number 5, the Haven's Gate, March 26, 1997, Rancho Santa Fe, California. A gated mansion in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in America. Inside, 39 people, all dead, all wearing identical black clothing, all with purple shrouds draped over their faces, all with $5 bills and quarters in their pockets. On the outside, it looked like a mass suicide. On the inside, it was something far more calculated, far more deliberate, and far more terrifying. This was Heaven's Gate. It began in the 1970s with 2 people, Marshall Applewhite, a former music professor from Texas, and Bonnie Nettles, a nurse. Together, they developed a belief system that mixed Christianity with science fiction in a way that sounds absurd until you understand exactly how it was delivered. They told their followers that Earth was about to be wiped clean and recycled, that the only way to survive was to leave the planet, that a spacecraft was traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet, visible in the sky above America in 1997, and that spacecraft was coming specifically for them. But to board it, they had to leave their human containers behind. That was their word for their bodies. Containers, things to be discarded. Now here is where it becomes deeply disturbing, because these were not unintelligent people. Heaven's Gate members were educated, functional, and technologically sophisticated. They ran a successful web design company called Higher Source. They built websites for legitimate businesses. They paid their taxes. They looked, from the outside, completely normal. What Applewhite had done, over 20 years of patient, precise psychological manipulation, was convince them that their intellect was actually a barrier to truth. That the smarter you were, the harder it was to see what he could see. That trusting him meant abandoning your own judgment. And one by one, they did. They followed an extremely structured daily routine. Matching clothes, matching haircuts, assigned sleeping schedules, controlled diet, no personal relationships outside the group, no television, no outside news, complete isolation from anyone who might question the belief system. By the time the Hale-Bopp comet appeared in 1997, 39 people were so completely separated from reality that they mixed phenobarbital into pudding and applesauce, consumed it in 3 groups over 3 days, and lay down on their bunk beds to wait for the spacecraft. The youngest was 26 years old. The oldest was 72. They left farewell videos, calm, smiling, saying they were excited, that they were finally going home. The mansion was found by a former member who had left the group and received a package in the mail, a video, and a note explaining what had happened. Applewhite himself was among the dead, but Heaven's Gate did not end in 1997. 2 surviving members still maintain the group's website to this day. The same website, still active, still spreading the same message. The spacecraft, they say, is still coming. Cult number 4, NXIVM. On the surface, NXIVM looked like a self-improvement company. It had a headquarters in Albany, New York. It ran seminars in major American cities and in Canada and Mexico. It charged between $2,000 and $5,000 for a basic course. It had celebrity members. It had a women's empowerment program called DOS that it described as a mentorship network. Its founder, Keith Raniere, called himself the world's smartest man. His followers called him Vanguard. Underneath the surface, NXIVM was something so calculated, so systematic, and so deliberately designed to destroy its members from the inside out, that when the full truth emerged in a federal courtroom in 2019, people who had covered organized crime for decades said they had never seen anything like it. Here is what DOS actually was. Women who joined were told it was an exclusive inner circle, a sisterhood. That membership would make them stronger, more disciplined, more successful. To join, they had to provide collateral, material that could destroy them if released. Private photographs, letters confessing to crimes they had not committed, statements about family members. The collateral was held by their master, another woman directly above them in a hierarchy that led, ultimately, to Raniere. Then came the branding. Members of DOS were branded with Raniere's initials, a cauterization scar on their bodies, while being held down and filmed. They were told this was a symbol of strength, that they had chosen this, that it was empowering. They were also required to have sex with Raniere. This was described as an honor. What made NXIVM uniquely dangerous was how it recruited. It did not target vulnerable people on street corners. It recruited through existing members, doctors, lawyers, actresses, successful businesswomen who genuinely believed in what they were doing. The actress Allison Mack, known to millions of Americans from the television series Smallville, was one of Raniere's closest lieutenants. She recruited women directly. She was their master. The psychological mechanism at work was something researchers now call coercive control. By the time a woman understood what she had joined, she was already compromised by her own collateral. Speaking out meant her collateral would be released. Leaving meant the same. Staying meant continued abuse. Raniere was arrested in Mexico in 2018 after the New York Times published an investigation. He was convicted in 2019 on all counts: sex trafficking, racketeering, forced labor. He is currently serving a 120-year federal prison sentence. Allison Mack pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3 years. But here is what stays with investigators who work this case. NXIVM operated for 20 years. In that time, it recruited an estimated 16,000 people across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It had a clinic that conducted unauthorized medical experiments on members. It had a children's program. It operated completely legally, hosting public seminars, filing taxes, appearing at business conferences. For 20 years, nobody stopped it. Cult number 3, the People's Temple. November 18th, 1978. Jonestown, Guyana. 918 people died in a single afternoon. It remains the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until September 11, 2001. And it began in Indiana. Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis in the 1950s. In its early years, the organization was genuinely progressive. One of the first racially integrated congregations in Indiana, at a time when that was genuinely dangerous. Jones preached equality, community, and social justice. He attracted followers from across the racial and economic spectrum. He built schools, ran drug rehabilitation programs, operated food banks. Politicians courted him. In San Francisco, where the church relocated in the 1970s, Jones was given a seat on the city's housing commission. He met with Vice President Walter Mondale. He was photographed with Rosalind Carter. He was publicly celebrated as a force for good. Behind the doors of his church, an entirely different reality existed. Jones controlled his congregation through a system of surveillance, public humiliation, physical punishment, and manufactured miracles. He faked cancer healings. He had members spy on each other and report private conversations. People who questioned him were beaten in front of the congregation as a lesson to others. He controlled who members could speak to, who they could marry, whether they could have children. He was also deeply paranoid and heavily medicated, addicted to prescription drugs that accelerated a psychological deterioration. His inner circle worked desperately to conceal from the public. In 1977, facing a major investigative piece in New West magazine and increasing scrutiny from U.S. authorities, Jones moved his entire congregation, over 1,000 people, to a compound he had built in the jungle of Guyana in South America. He called it Jonestown. He told his followers it was a paradise, an agricultural utopia, free from the racism and capitalism of America. It was a prison. Passports were confiscated on arrival. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Food was controlled and deliberately insufficient. Members worked from 6 in the morning until late at night in jungle heat. Jones broadcast his voice over loudspeakers 24 hours a day. Sermons, warnings, political speeches. A technique now recognized as a deliberate sleep deprivation and psychological breakdown strategy. He also conducted what he called white nights, rehearsals for what he called revolutionary suicide. Members were given drinks and told they were poisoned. They waited to die. Then Jones told them it had been a test, that they had passed, that true believers did not fear death. On November 17, 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan flew to Jonestown to investigate on behalf of concerned family members in the United States. He was allowed inside. He spoke with members. Some asked to leave with him. The next day, as Ryan's group and the defecting members reached the airstrip to leave, Jones's armed guards opened fire. Congressman Ryan was killed. 3 journalists were killed. A defecting member was killed. Back at Jonestown, Jones announced over the loudspeaker that the time had come. Vats of grape-flavored drink mixed with cyanide, sedatives, and tranquilizers were prepared by the camp's medical staff. Parents gave it to their children first through syringes, then drank it themselves. 918 people died in under 5 hours. 284 of them were children. Jones himself died of a gunshot wound to the head. Whether it was self-inflicted has never been definitively confirmed. When American military personnel arrived at Jonestown days later, they described a scene so overwhelming that many required psychological treatment afterward. The phrase, "drinking the Kool-Aid," used casually today to mean blindly following something, comes directly from this afternoon in 1978. 918 people, 284 children. One afternoon. Cult number 2. The Family. Charles Manson. Charles Manson never personally killed anyone. This is the fact that has disturbed criminologists, psychologists, and prosecutors for over 50 years. Because what Manson did was in many ways more frightening than pulling a trigger himself. He convinced other people to do it for him, and they did it willingly, enthusiastically, with absolute devotion. Manson was 32 years old when he was released from federal prison in 1967. A career criminal who had spent more of his life incarcerated than free. He arrived in San Francisco at the peak of the Summer of Love, a cultural moment of complete social upheaval where thousands of young Americans were rejecting authority, experimenting with drugs, and searching desperately for meaning and community. Manson was extraordinarily skilled at reading people, specifically at identifying what they needed and becoming it. For young women fleeing difficult families, he was a father figure. For young men searching for identity, he was a leader. For everyone, he was a prophet, a man who claimed to understand the hidden truth beneath the surface of American society. He built what became known as the Family, a group that, at its peak, had around 100 followers living communally, first in San Francisco, then at Spahn Ranch outside Los Angeles. Life at the ranch was built around Manson's control. LSD was used constantly, not recreationally but strategically, to break down the psychological defenses of members and make them receptive to suggestion. Sleep deprivation, communal sex, constant music. Manson fancied himself a musician and forced members to listen to and praise his compositions for hours at a time. He also developed an apocalyptic belief system he called Helter Skelter, named after the Beatles' song, which he claimed contained coded messages directed at him personally. He believed an imminent race war would destroy American society, and that the family would survive it and emerge to rule the new world. And he believed that to trigger this race war, he needed to commit murders and frame the black community for them. In August 1969, he sent members of the family to a home in the Hollywood Hills. 5 people were murdered, including the actress Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant. The following night, the family struck again at a different home, killing 2 more people. The murders were designed to look racially motivated. The word pig was written on the front door in the victim's blood. What strikes every expert who has studied the Manson case is the profile of the killers. Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten were not violent people before Manson. They were young women from ordinary American families. One had been a camp counselor for children. One had been a church choir singer. Manson had not found killers. He had made them. He was convicted in 1971 and died in prison in 2017 at the age of 83. Members of the family still grant interviews. Some still defend him. Some say they would do it again. Cult 1. The Order of the Solar Temple, and the most disturbing fact. Everything you have heard so far happened in America. Jonestown, Manson, NXIVM, Heaven's Gate, American cults, American victims, American tragedies. Case number 1 is different. Not because it was larger, not because it was more violent, because of what it reveals about the people who joined, and what that reveals about all of us. The Order of the Solar Temple was founded in Geneva, Switzerland in 1984 by Luc Jouret, a Belgian physician, and Joseph D. Mambro, a French jeweler. It operated across Switzerland, France, Canada, and to a lesser extent, the United States. Its members were not searching for meaning from a position of weakness. They were judges, politicians, professors, a mayor, a journalist, a civil servant who headed Quebec's Ministry of the Environment. People at the absolute top of their respective societies. People who had everything. The order presented itself as a chivalric order in the tradition of the Knights Templar, an ancient brotherhood of enlightened individuals who had access to cosmic truths beyond ordinary human understanding. Membership was exclusive, expensive, and by invitation only. Initiation fees ran into tens of thousands of dollars. Members wore ceremonial robes. They participated in rituals with swords and candles and ancient symbology. They felt chosen, special, elevated above ordinary humanity. What they did not know was that Di Mambro had a room in his home where he used sophisticated lighting equipment and holographic projectors to manufacture visions of ascended masters, spiritual beings who appeared to members during ceremonies and delivered messages. Everything was staged. Everything was fake. In October 1994, the first mass deaths occurred. In Switzerland, 23 people were found dead at a farm. Some shot, some drugged, some with plastic bags over their heads. In another Swiss location, 25 more were found dead in a burned farmhouse. A 5-week-old baby had been stabbed with a wooden stake because Di Mambro had declared it the Antichrist. In Canada, 3 more died, including the baby's parents. Subsequent mass deaths occurred in 1995 and 1997. 16 more people died in France, 5 more in Canada. In total, 74 people died across 3 countries over 3 years. Here is the fact that no investigator has ever fully resolved. Many of those who died were not murdered. The evidence suggests they went willingly. Judges, professors, politicians, people who had every resource available to them to leave, to question, to investigate. People who chose, at the end, to believe. And this, more than the crimes of Manson, more than the compound in Jonestown, more than the brands on the bodies of NXIVM members, is the most disturbing truth at the center of every cult that has ever existed. It is not that vulnerable people get manipulated. It is that intelligent, successful, powerful people who believe they are immune, are often the most vulnerable of all. Because the more certain you are that it could never happen to you, the less you are watching for the moment it begins. 5 organizations, 5 belief systems, 5 different methods of control. Heaven's Gate told them the planet was ending and only they could leave. NXIVM told them suffering was strength and submission was empowerment. The People's Temple told them it was paradise until the gates closed. The Manson family told them love was a reason to kill. And the Order of the Solar Temple told the most educated, most powerful, most rational people that they alone had been chosen to understand the truth. 39 dead in California, 74 dead across 3 countries, 918 dead in a single afternoon. Thousands of lives permanently shattered across America and beyond. These are not ancient stories. NXIVM operated until 2018. Heaven's Gate's website is live right now. Former Manson family members walk free today. The question is not whether cults exist. The question is, what if this kept you awake? You are exactly where you belong. The dark ledger goes deeper every single week. Subscribe, because the next case we are opening is one that happened in a city you know, on a street that still exists. to people whose families are still waiting for answers. Leave a comment below. Which of these 5 disturbs you the most and why? I read every single one.